Well, we are live, and thank you for coming to Healing with Shawnalee and as a part of the Wake Up with Giants TV network. If you don't subscribe to us, subscribe. If you're not a part of the Tribe of Giants, we invite you to come and join us and be a part of the Tribe of Giants. And really, it's about reaching your highest potential and getting out of being a small and overcoming those things to really come into your highest self. And so tonight I'm excited to talk with Haley Marie, and excited to just see what comes up and really just dive in and talk about whatever spirit has in store for us. And she's an emotion code healer, she's a coach, she offers one-on-one mentoring, and really I will let her dive into kind of her story. And so thank you, Haley, for coming and joining me tonight. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes.
Here.
Yeah.
I have a lot of fun talking about not fun things.
Yes. Part of the healing journey.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I will introduce myself a little bit, but I'm Haley Marie, last name Calderwood, and I am my specialty. I get nerdy about it, so I know everybody has their favorite things to study, but my favorite and most nerdy thing to study is belief systems and emotions and how they relate to each other. And so my superpower is around belief reprogramming. So what does that even mean? Well, what that means is we all have beliefs about ourselves. So for example, a belief could be, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not beautiful. I'm, any of those types of things, right? And those belief systems run on unconscious programming in our mind. And then what happens? Well, if you don't feel good enough, you're going to do things, you're going to have behaviors and actions that make you do things that align with that belief system. And then you're going to have all the emotions and thoughts and feelings and experiences that match that. So what I like to do with people is whenever you say, I'm not enough, or whatever belief system you have, I'm able to go back to the exact moment where you first developed the memory. Help you go through it, help you change it, help you find, wisdom, help you find truth. And then it changes the whole timeline and changes that belief system entirely and changes your whole life. It's insane.
That is definitely a superpower.
For sure. So that's a little bit about what I do as a coach and mentor. That's where I specialize in, is belief reprogramming.
Yeah. And using the emotion code to go find where it is and in the subconscious mind. I love that.
Yeah, it's I do use a lot of muscle testing and just intuition, knowing, feeling, tuning in. It's the best job in the world.
That is because that, impacts somebody's lives. And sometimes these beliefs can come from like childhood, or
yes,
maybe what they've heard, or maybe what they repeated. We have a question that says, do you understand there's a difference between emotions and feelings? If so, can you explain?
Yeah, so emotions are, things such as grief, such as shame, all those types of things. And the feelings I feel like feelings more translate into the actions or the behaviors that you start to do. And so I guess that's what I would say is the difference between emotions and feelings, but very similar. And emotions, each and every one of them has a different meaning, a different gift. For example, if you're somebody who experiences anger a lot, anger is the emotion that translates and tells you that your boundaries have been violated. And so anytime you're starting to feel angry, I'm always like, okay, time out. Who are you mad at? What did they do? How do you feel like your boundaries were violated? What do we need to do here? So, I hope that answers your question, Hugh.
Yeah, I love that. because then it helps you to have that awareness. And then also, like, well, what is my boundary for somebody who has never created boundaries or doesn't know that that was crossed? It's making them aware.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I guess another way to describe it is you'll have a thought. So it all starts with thinking. Like, what are you believing or thinking? And so your thoughts are what lead to your feelings. So, for example, if you have that thought of, oh my gosh, I'm so fat, well, then what feelings does it create or emotions does it create? Well, we have like, I'm feeling guilt and shame around my food patterns or whatever that might be. And then so your thoughts lead to your feelings, which lead to your behaviors and your actions. And so they're all three very, very much correlated.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, Hugh, that's right. So I understand emotions are neutral. It's the feelings that label them good or bad. Yes, completely agree. That's why I'm so passionate about helping people understand what are the like what is the message behind the emotions. So if you're feeling shame, well, shame is like an internal boundary violation. It's something that you experience internally. And so when we are able to look at emotions from that neutral standpoint and understand what is the message, then
Yeah.
it helps us to be able to sit in them and know, like for me, I don't think any emotions are bad.
No.
I believe that how you handle the emotions, though, like if you're angry
Mhm.
and you go and you punch somebody, that's not really appropriate to do if you're angry. So, it's more about like, what are they telling you and how are you sitting in them, dealing with them, and processing through them?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, so true.
yeah.
Yeah, because you can really take that and um, it could fester and
Mm-hmm.
create where somebody can be really out of control um, with that anger because they don't know how to deal with it. But then they haven't even looked internally, like, what is this, and where
Yeah.
did this come from? And
Well, I
then
think we're not even taught we're not even taught what to do with emotions. The
so
only
true.
thing we're taught about is what emotions are appropriate.
Mm,
That's what
mm,
society tells us. It's like, oh, it's appropriate to be happy and joyful, and it's not appropriate to be depressed. And oh, you're allowed to be angry, but only if it's justified. You're allowed to, and you can be angry, but it only can be for a certain amount of time. And if someone passes away and you're experiencing grief, well, you just need to get over it in like what, a week? Is that what corporate and all
yeah.
the companies give you? They're like, hey, 7 days to get over it. When emotions are like water and we need to allow them to flow freely through us and know that they're going to come and go and like screw what society says because they're so wrong about it. But that's why I teach people so passionately about when we are in sessions together. I
Yeah.
really tap into the feeling. What are you feeling? And let's sit in it and hold it so that you understand what to do with it moving forward. Let's breathe with it because most people don't know this. If you just sit and breathe in an emotion, it takes between 3 to 5 minutes for it to actively move out of your system.
Mm, mm. And
Hi,
then
why didn't anybody tell me that?
yeah, yeah, and then you're not trying to recreate that or unconsciously really create that out in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's just a disservice to all of us where we live in a society where we're taught to mask and we're not taught to actually deal with things. And so most people, especially women, because women, we go up and down.
Mm,
We go
mhm.
up and down with our cycles, with
Yes.
the planet and the moon and whatever you want to, call it. Women are meant to be roller coasters. And so we're labeled as crazy and insane, all because we feel all of these things. And me, like, for example, me in a course of a day, I could go through 20 emotions within an hour to 2 hours a day. And people would say I'm crazy, but really, this is how we're supposed to function. We're supposed to feel.
Yeah. just don't live and play and make yourself like a victim. And, you feel it to heal it.
Exactly. Yeah. So just really creating awareness. I always like to talk to my emotions as if they're different people. So when anger comes in, I'm like, oh, what's up, anger? It's been a while, and
Yes.
just create a relationship with whatever I'm feeling and going through at the time. It's a powerful tool that people don't teach.
Yeah. Anger, you could be on the bus, but, you're not driving the bus today.
Yeah. Anger is my buddy. That's like my primary one, my primary go-to. And as soon as it comes in, I'm just like, oh, okay.
Welcome. And then it's like, well, what was violated, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always just an opportunity to look at your boundaries and all the people in it. The difference between grief versus mourning. Well, mourning is more of an action. That's more of like actually sitting in it, being with it. Grief is an interesting emotion because it's one of the only emotions that appears in different forms. So one day grief could come in as anger. The next grief could come in as like a happy memory, or deep sadness, or numbness, right? That's a pretty common one to experience. And so I always say that grief is the emotion of all the different faces.
Yes. And then you could pass that stage too. You could pass one of those stages of grief and you're happy, but then sadness can come back. And
and there's no it's interesting because when you bring up the stages, it makes people believe that there's an end in sight to grief. I actually don't believe that there ever is an end in sight to grief. It just evolves into different, memories, different faces, all of those kinds of things. And so if you are experiencing grief, it's learning that you never know how it's going to appear to be, but really sitting in it and giving it that awareness in that space is really, really helpful when you're grieving.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And just loving yourself. And grief is usually felt in the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so, making sure that you do take time to feel it. A lot of people don't know that, or we had talked a little bit about before the show, like my grief was held in my womb space. I lost,
Yes.
I had, like a miscarriage. And so therefore, then that's what I carried in there. And so clearing that out so that the emotion can clear. And it looks like you have a friend that joined.
Hello, my sister. She is my real sister.
Awesome. Well, hello, Heidi. It's so good to see you on here.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining. But yeah, so I love how you help people with their emotions and guide them through it and help walk them through it.
Yeah, it's a powerful process. And for me, I guess if it's okay, I'd love to share a little bit about like how I even got here, if that's
Yes,
okay.
totally.
So about, when was it? It's like seems such a lifetime ago when I bring it up because it was so long ago, but about 12 years ago after I had my son, I went through a very nasty divorce. It was bad. And my ex-husband at the time, he very like verbally abusive, very like gaslighting, narcissistic type of behaviors. And he left me and married somebody else. And I was left with my son. And that was such a dark time for me. I went through so many different things of, okay, I'm not good enough because if I was, he would be there. And then having a baby, you go through all the body changes. And so, of course, at my heaviest, I was like, oh, well, it's because I'm not good enough and I'm fat and all of these things. And anyways, what ended up happening is I had to start on depression medication because I could not deal. I could not handle life. I was left with mass amounts of debt with no way to handle it. And just all of a sudden, a single mom with a newborn, along with the postpartum and all the things. And so I started taking depression medication and I just felt so numb. And so I went to a therapist. And so I'd go to the therapist, talk therapy. Nothing against talk therapy. Whatever works for you is great. But for me, I'd go there and I'd be like, he'd say, okay, so how are you feeling? I'm like, well, I'm angry. And he's like, okay, well, why are you angry? I'm like, well, because my ex-husband left me, or my husband left me. And he's like, okay, well, how does that make you feel? And I'm like, angry. And then he's like, so I'm like, I'm just angry. I'm like, sir, I don't know what you want me to say. And I feel like round and round in circles we go. And he's like, well, you know what? She's a little like crazy. Let's just medicate her, get her out of the office. And then that turned into toxic abusive behaviors with myself. Toxic dieting, obsessive body image. I would eat just chicken and celery for like months on end, and that's all I would eat. And so anyways, it got to a point where I was just at rock bottom. And it's funny that my sister Heidi is on here, because I got to the point where I was willing to try literally anything. Yeah. Like, we'll try anything to feel, anything to not be this way anymore. I can't stand it anymore. And so my sister was visiting, she started seeing this energy healer, and his name's Dr. Brady. And so, so did I say celery and peanut butter? I meant celery and chicken.
Yeah, we said celery and chicken.
Okay. So no peanut butter. It was just celery and chicken. Anyways, so I went to the same energy healer that she was going to. And I was the most skeptical person in the world about anything to do with healing. In fact, I made fun of my sister, like bad, telling her she's crazy, all these types of things. I had all these opinions about what she was doing. So I go to this guy and I walk in, and he says to me, he's like, okay, so the emotion we're going to talk about today is low self-esteem. And I had just got done explaining to him that my husband left me. So I was like, oh my gosh, you're a rocket scientist. Of course I would feel low self-esteem. Like, and then he saw, he's like, hey, listen, like, I know you're skeptical, but just hang in there a second, because your low self-esteem, it actually doesn't come from your marriage. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean? So he says, no, it comes from when you were like 8. And so I was like, 8. Okay, so you want me to try to remember what it was like to be 8. Okay. So anyways, he takes me through this visualization process, and I close my eyes, and he's like, okay, let's remember being 8. And all of a sudden I had a memory drop in of when I used to get teased on the school bus for having a unibrow.
Oh.
When I say unibrow, Kate, it wasn't just like little eyebrows. Like, I had Oscar the Grouch straight, like just the worst unibrow ever. And so I recalled it. And so at 8 years old, with being teased, that was the first moment I started being aware of my body, aware of how I looked, and that if I didn't look a certain way, people were going to make fun of me, pay attention to me, and tease me. So I go through this visualization process, and I talk to my 8-year-old self in my head, essentially, and help her know, like, it's okay. You don't have to feel that way. You're beautiful. You're enough. And when I came out of it, I was like, this shit doesn't work, like, whatever. But then all of a sudden, a week to 2 weeks later, I started to notice I wasn't looking in the mirror anymore. I wasn't crazy dieting anymore. And so I kept going back over and over again. So I saw this guy for about 2 years. And then after that, I was like, okay, I need to learn how to do this, because I'm going to help as many people as possible get through this, off my depression medication, and finally just living a happy, fulfilled life. And I started like manifesting, making money. I bought my own house as a single mom. It just insane things shifted for me when I started doing the inner work, belief work. And so here we are, 7 years later, and having my dream job and helping other people do the same.
I love that. And you have a relationship. I don't know how long you've been in the relationship.
Yeah, 3 years. And it's so funny, because I always tell my partner now, I'm like, it's like a fairy tale being with you. It really is like a fairy tale, but it only happened for me because I did the belief work.
Mm-hmm.
I did the work of, because before it was like, oh, well, I can't find a partner until I lose weight. Nobody's ever going to love me. How could they? Those are the belief systems that keep you from what you desire.
So true. So true. And we fall into those traps. Like those are the stories that we keep repeating to
Yes,
ourselves.
they are on a record, just going like this. And I tell people, I'm like, you can't get off the train unless you address your belief systems. And you have no idea what you're experiencing. You literally have no idea what unconscious programming you're running on that's keeping you stuck. All you know is things aren't working. You keep dating the same type of trashy guy. You keep being stuck in your career. You can't move forward with your body. And it's these belief systems that are keeping you stuck.
Yeah, taking ownership.
Yeah, ownership is important too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, so coming out of that, I read the emotion code, if people aren't aware of that, but it really can, like by muscle testing, you can go back to the exact event of when that happened. And so, like you said, when you happened when you're 8, well, really, you can do that with anyone, be able to go back and find what that specific thing. A lot of these things and dis-ease is like that discomfort in the body. It comes from thoughts, but you can go back to wherever that started and, that moment. In the emotion code, there's a story of a girl who couldn't walk, and they had her up on stage, and Dr. Bradley Nelson, he was talking about how doing like muscle testing and everything like that, and she could never run or anything, and it was from her hip. And he asked her, by muscle testing, when did this happen? And it was 0. And her mom was in the audience, and she was like, what? And it turns out like her mom had pinned her diaper when she was changing her before a nap, and she was bawling and crying, and she was just like, can you just go to sleep? And she didn't realize till after she went to change her diaper after the nap that she got her skin. Well, that emotion was trapped in that instance within the body. And so then they were able to go back into when she was 0 and change that. So then a week later, she was running and walking and doing things that she had never done before because they went back and healed that emotion. So I love that you're able to do this. Have you ever used those stumbling blocks before? Are they your stepping stones?
What do you expand on that a little bit for me? What do you mean by stumbling blocks? As in, like, do my belief systems from before come back and reappear, if that's what you're asking? But I guess while she's expanding on that, emotions, they get stuck in the body. And so, as I said earlier, emotions need to be able to flow like water. They should naturally move. So it's very similar to if you were to have a river or a dam. If that dam's not properly moving, or if things get stuck, you're going to have this big entire mess of water. And so it's the same with our emotions. If we're avoiding, or if we're not freely feeling the things that we're feeling, they get stuck and they cause problems. Headaches, migraines. I've had clients with my sister, she had phantom back pains. That this extreme back pain where she couldn't move, she couldn't walk, she couldn't do normal things, all because these emotions are stuck in her body. I've seen people with lots of illness that comes through. And I've personally experienced that as well. I got diagnosed with Lyme's disease about 3 years ago, and all the doctors, they wanted to put me on all of these medications, and I felt prompted to do therapy instead with the same doctor I worked with before. And so anyways, I did 6 months of belief reprogramming work, and then my symptoms for the Lyme's disease cleared up.
Wow.
That's like how people don't understand like how much your emotions are impacting you when you ignore them.
Totally. and that you could totally change it and reprogram it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, people are like, oh, I can't change the past. I can't go back in time. And, you're right. Like, you can't go back in time per se, but you can change how you feel about it. And the feelings that you change, or the things that you get in touch with, that is what really helps you to move forward and helps you to change things. Okay, so during your situation when your child was born, all the crap that you were dealt with, are you now using these events as your launch pad of who you are now? Yes and no. So when I first started my healing journey and I would talk about my ex-husband, it was very much his fault. I blamed my ex-husband for years and years and years for the situation I was in, not taking ownership. And so things have evolved since then. So starting then, he's a narcissist, he's terrible, and he left me, and he did these things to me, and he's mean to me and treats me bad. Fast forward to now, with doing years and years of work, my ex-husband is actually one of my clients now.
Oh, wow.
He's my client. He comes to me once every other week, and I help him work through his own belief systems. And on top of that, he is very close with my partner. They go hang out, they go have boys' days. And so when you're healing anything, there's what's known as the healing continuum. And it starts with whatever the story was. And so for me at the time, there was a lot of guilt and shame. I feel guilt and shame around how things are going with my marriage, and I'm a victim. And then it transcends and goes through all these different steps. So maybe it could be anger. I'm angry about what happened to me, and it's your fault, and you blame. And then it moves to, okay, now I feel kind of neutral about it. I feel neutral that it happened. I'm not really like mad or sad. I'm a little bit numb. And then it could move and transition to, maybe I'm ready to forgive you now. And then all of a sudden it transcends into unconditional love. And that's where I'm at now with my ex-husband. That doesn't define me anymore. It's just something that happened to me, but it feels like a lifetime ago. And I don't harbor any resentment or pain towards him anymore, but I did for a really long time. I did for about 8 years straight. And it was not easy on me, him, or a child, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I love the work that you've put in, and that you can be at that place, like just offering love, and that he's even coming to see you now.
It's insane. People think I'm crazy when I tell them that. And I'm like, no, and they're like, well, how do you do it without getting triggered? And I'm like, because I unconditionally love him from such a higher perspective that it's not me versus him anymore. It's me and him versus the problems, me and him versus the feelings, me and him versus the emotions. And from that perspective, I think it's just so beautiful that two little 18, 19-year-olds at the time can come together now as adults and really like sit with each other, feel through those things. And it has helped my current relationship so much, being able to do that.
Yeah. Well, and even the impact on your son, because now he's seeing you work together, and it doesn't mean that you need to get together, right? You're here, and that you are still helping each other. And that shows like so much of your character, that you can still offer that and offer him healing, because you know that he needs his own healing too. And
my son asked me right before I came in here, he's like, can you please do a healing intuitive session on me? And I was like, yeah, but can you wait till after? Just like breathe like I've taught you, use your tools, call in your higher self, whatever we got to do. Mom will be right there. But just like, hold on a second. So it's funny. I work on my son too. He uses the tools. It's powerful work.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. And it's powerful that he's getting to learn those tools and knows how to use them, and how much of an impact really is he going to make on those around him.
Yeah. My son is very, he's a roller coaster of emotion. If you're into human design, if anybody knows what that is, he's an emotional generator. And so if you are that, you do go like this with your emotions. He has very high highs and very low lows. And so I've really had to teach him to hone in on what to do in the lows, what to do in the highs. And everywhere in between, but it's just amazing. And he's 12, like using these tools. That's how powerful these are.
Mm.
So, yeah.
I love
Call him in. That would be incredible to hear him talk about this.
yeah.
I think he's playing with his little friends on if I could peel him away from Xbox for 5 seconds.
Yeah, that takes precedence over everything else.
Yeah, he's pretty spectacular, but yeah.
Yeah, what a powerful tool to have, especially at that age, and where, a lot of what society teaches is just medicate and they'll be okay, and medicate and medicate. And
I work with a lot of kids that like parents will bring them to me and they're like, oh, they have behavior problems, they have this, they have that, we're going to medicate them, we're going to do all these things. I'm like, okay, well, can I just have can you give me a week or two with them, let me work through some things, because the kids, because they're so young, they haven't had a full chance to develop all these belief systems yet, unless of course there's traumatic abuse and things of that nature. But like if we can get to the kids early, you can really help them navigate their emotions in such a beautiful way to where they're not taking on as many crazy belief systems. Will they still take them on? Yeah, you just cannot avoid I guess your development, what you think and believe about yourself. That will naturally happen, but it's powerful to help them know, oh, this emotion's mine, this one's not, I can get rid of this one, I can move this one here. And that's a tool that I wish I had when I was a teenager.
Yeah. Being an empath, picking up on somebody else's feelings, not knowing how to have boundaries or create okay, this is an understanding, this is their feeling, and that you don't necessarily need to pick up on it. And they're also really impressionable at that time too, of trying to make impressions and feeling like they have to people please, or I want to be accepted, and so now I do this.
Yeah, he's so cute. He has a little I gave him a pendulum. I taught my son how to muscle test, so he'll always be muscle testing, and he's like but unfortunately he uses it sometimes as a fortune teller. So he's like, am I going to be an Air Force pilot? And I'm like, honey, this isn't a fortune telling tool. That's not how this works. But it's just funny to watch. And he's like, am I going to be a millionaire? I'm like, if it was that easy,
yes,
no. Be like,
I know, right? Ask my higher self, and is this aligned with me?
Yeah. So
yeah,
but yeah, just such powerful tools. But I've seen this work just in the years that I've been doing it. I have seen so many people come from every walk that you can imagine, all the way from sexual abuse and trauma to just all the things in between. And I've seen people truly take back their lives by doing belief reprogramming work. People don't understand how massive of an impact. And I always call it therapy on steroids. Because what could take you 3 years with a therapist, we're doing in 6 months. That's how quick this works.
Wow. And what a savings, not only in time, right? That's the biggest thing, but really getting their life back and really giving them that gift to then take this traumatic experience and to be able to move on from that, and to not have what's stored up in the body and the emotions, and then that just creates their world from there, who they draw into their life, what they do with their life, believing they're never going to amount to anything, or that it's always got to be this way. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, our beliefs permanently in place. No, they're not. That's the beautiful thing about this too, is I tell people, I'm like, well, what do you want to experience in your life? What do you want? What do you desire? If you desire a good man in your life, or if you desire more money, or you desire to lose weight, it doesn't matter what it is. You can always change the belief systems or the patterns or anything that is holding you in place. But everything has layers. So if you're not making the money that you want, well, we have to do money work. We have to go through all the belief systems that you saw and heard and think about money. if you're looking for a good man, well, we have to go through. So relationships are mirrors, in case anybody's not aware. So if you do not shift you first, and then you go into a relationship, you are going to attract a person that mirrors to you your greatest pain and your greatest insecurities, because that's how relationships work. That is how we learn. That is what partnership does. And so before I did the work, after my, ex-husband, I was attracting men that were terrible for me. And, when they would not show up for me, not commit to me, lie to me, it's because I was lying to myself. I wasn't willing to look at the parts within myself that I needed to change and adjust. But once I changed that belief system, Dream Man walks in. All of a sudden, I make more money than I've ever seen. I'm no longer in that story of I'm a single mom, I can't make it, I'm poor, and I'm on food stamps. Then all of a sudden, I'm living in a reality of holding $100K over a year.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? Just from doing belief work?
Yeah.
It's insane. Is a relationship about completing the other, enhancing what each other already has? No, I don't believe that at all. I don't believe you're there to complete or be somebody's other half or anything like that. The most powerful relationships I have seen and worked with, because I do relationship coaching as well, is those who are willing to do the work separately and then come together and heal with each other with the mirror that you guys are presenting. Because a lot of times, almost 99% of the time, you guys are going to feel the same way.
Yeah.
So like my partner and I, we are working through body things, and it's not like he is not responsible for how I feel about my body. And I'm not going to give him that power or like ask him to do that, because he's going through his own stuff too. So instead, it's more about learning to navigate it on your own and then coming together just for support. Not leaning on them, not making them responsible for you, but just having them walk alongside you as a true partner.
I love that. Yeah, holding that space. That's so powerful.
Yeah, for sure. We've my partner and I have worked through many, many mirrors, and because we have such awareness, we can come together and go, oh, you know what? I'm feeling this and this. It's mine, but do you have space to hold me in that? Do you have the ability? Do you have the time? Are you expanded enough to be able to just hold me for a second and support me in this? And honoring where your partner is at in the moment.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's powerful.
For sure. I feel
I
could like go on and on into webs.
Totally.
I could talk for a week.
Yes. Totally, because you don't want to make somebody feel responsible for that, or oh, well, it's your fault, this is why I'm feeling it. It's really like taking that ownership, being conscious of where you're at, and like, no, this is my responsibility. But it's so much comfort to be able to know. And I love that you ask that permission too. Like, how are you feeling? Can you hold me in this? Instead of just assuming, or like, I'm just going to dump all this stuff on you, and I want you to just hold that for me, without even like ever expressing that.
Here, I know you're going through some things, but here's some more. Let me make you responsible for all the things I think and feel too. And it's hard, especially when people hurt you. I always say, like, one of the hardest lessons on this planet is accepting, or I guess learning that you can't control what other people are doing.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating. It is the most annoying thing that we're going to have to go through, is knowing that people are free to make their choices, and we cannot control the choices. The only choice that we have is how we feel, how we behave, and what boundaries we set for ourselves. Other than that, we cannot control what other people are doing or what their experience is going to be. We just can't.
No, totally can't. Yeah. Yeah. And then not trying to change them, but just that's that unconditional love.
Yeah. It's I've done a lot of work. I have a very high perspective on a lot of things. And trust me, I've heard all of the things, but the more you can get into a higher perspective of like, hey, we're all here having a human experience, we're all trying to figure it out, the more easy it will be to swallow some of these, hard pills.
Yeah, totally.
For sure.
Totally. Because you're coming up against like that shadow and that part of you that you have repressed or don't want to show to the world, or that have held you back. Oh, love you. Mr. Ryan the Lion Morris.
Oh.
Yeah, so really just it can, let's see, what did Hugh say? He said, I can hold it for them and allow them so much freedom until they're ready to have it back, if they want it back.
So interestingly enough, I always have I have like I don't know what word I'm trying to say right now, but here's this for you.
Yeah.
So speaking of your partners or your loved ones or your children or friends or whoever, people who are feeling a certain way, right? Because we're empaths. And so we could call a friend, have a conversation. Let's say they're angry and they push their anger onto you, you hold it for them, they feel better or something like that, right? Because that happens. Yeah. That happens to where we carry each other's emotions. And so I always like to tell it like this. Let's say you're driving down the road and you see your partners or your friends or your mom, whoever likes to dump on you and put their emotions on you, you see their car flipped over on the side of the road. Okay? And you get out of your car, you run down, and right when you open the door, you see that they have a broken leg. Do you, number one, break your leg because they have a broken leg and try to drag them out of the car? Or do you stand from a very strong place and then pull them out of the car?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this. People are going to feel like shit anyways.
Yeah.
And you don't need to feel like shit too. You are not helping anybody by carrying other people's emotions, feelings, or shit. And I know that we like to think that we're heroes when we do that, but we're actually not just hurting us, we're hurting them because we cannot hold space for somebody if we're in the shit with them. So what do we do? It's more of like, it's kind of like being in a corn maze. While they're navigating through the maze, trying to figure it the fuck out, we're going to stand up on a platform and we're going to help guide them, support them, and cheer them on from a place of wellness. And we're not going to drain ourselves doing it, because if somebody feels that way, they're going to feel that way anyway. So why should you?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's allowing them to process that emotion.
Mm-hmm. And you are not responsible to carry anybody's thoughts or feelings that they push on you. And that is a problem that I see in the industry a lot. Like when I'm working with people, is they're carrying their toxic partner's crap, they're carrying their kids' crap, they're carrying the crap from work, and they're carrying the crap from society and what they hear from the news. And then they have this big weight on their shoulders of all this pressure that they're carrying. And I'm like, why? Give it back. You're only responsible for you. That's not selfish.
It's not.
But you cannot serve other people if you're weighed down. You just can't.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a time that I had anger on the heart, and my Reiki master asked me, Shauna, is this yours? And I said, no. And she's like, well, whose is it? Oh, that's my daughter's. She's like, no, give it back. That is for her to process at her own time, in her own process. You cannot take that from her. Like that's her experience.
Yeah, it's hard. And I know we want to save people. We do. We want to keep our kids from hurting, keep the people we love from hurting, but we are stopping growth here because think about all the things you've been through. You would not be the incredible woman you have been through, that you are now, without what you've been through. Like, we have to have a human experience to grow into who we're meant to be, as painful as it is for people to go through.
Yeah.
We only can help people from a full cup, or else we're draining ourselves and then we become useless to our own growth.
Mm. Oh, amen. Oh my goodness. That right there in itself, like totally,
Mm-hmm.
totally. Like, so in my abusive marriage for like the 21 years, I would serve from that empty cup and I would give of myself. So then what was I stuck in? Right? I couldn't even help myself, but I'd help other people and pretend that I was okay. But then that also, in a sense, was almost like feeding from them.
Yeah.
It was feeding, just that cycle. And it wasn't that pure, clean energy of, where it really should be.
Yeah. And then you don't know where somebody begins, where somebody starts. You don't know what emotions you truly are feeling. You don't even know who you are when you start taking on those feelings from other people. And so
Yeah.
it's a problem. Like when you're unaware of what's yours and not yours, it creates weird stories that you carry around, and especially generationally, because you have three different ways that you experience emotion or that you attract emotion. You have generations, so going through your family line, then you have absorbing from other people, and then you have just what you feel based on your experiences. So you're getting hit three times, three different ways with emotion. That's a lot of information that's coming in, and that's what creates like anxiety and nervousness and all these things, because you're panicking going, okay, crap, whoa, where's this all coming from? But you're unaware of where it's coming from at the end. That in and of itself will cause you to be on unconscious programming.
Wow. Mm. Wow. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And you think about like the ancestral line, and this has always been the case, and this is always the story, and this is where I came from. And but is that what a therapist coach does? But isn't that what a therapist or coach does?
Help you process through emotion. Yeah, I think, well, some will. It depends on if what their focus is. Every therapist, coach, or mentor has, I guess, a different skill set, a different area that they
Yeah,
focus in. Mine is emotion. That's just, there's so many different ways to heal.
there is.
There's breath work, there's talk therapy, there's belief reprogramming, there's Reiki, there's chiropractic. There's just so many options. It just depends on what you resonate with. But really, wouldn't it be more powerful if we just all learned this skill of knowing what was ours and not ours, so that we don't have to go pay somebody to
Yeah.
tell us what we're feeling? I mean, that's what I do with my clients. I want them to have realistic tools. My goal is to get my clients to not need me anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not here to keep you on. I don't want to be your life support. I don't want
Exactly.
to be your oracle or anything like that. I want you to become your life support and your oracle and your gift and your person. I
Yes.
believe that everybody can do this, regardless of who you are.
Yeah. Taking on your own healing, not passing that out. That was like a conversation I had the other day, is just no, you taking full responsibility. Yeah, it's great to go see a healer. It's great to go, have that. You feel so uplifted um, and everything with that. But there comes a point like these tools are meant to help you. And really, you're the only one that can change those thoughts and those beliefs and those
Mhm.
systems that you have in place. But it comes by you doing the work, here to help guide you and help you through that. But it's really ultimately your responsibility.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And to be clear, I do have somebody that I see. I always have a coach and a mentor, but you'll find that as you do healing, it evolves into new things. So when I first started, I needed really a lot of help to get out of a really dark, heavy place. But then now I'm able to manage my emotions fairly easily now. Doesn't mean that every day is simple, but I have the tools in place. And so now the person I work with is helping me up level. And so I believe, at least for me, my experience has been different levels of healers, therapists, coaches, and mentors
Totally.
as you heal and self-discover where you are. But I do believe that you should work with somebody and always keep growing. But it just is going to look different with each person that you work with.
Totally, because once you heal that layer, or once you go through that, then it's something different to work on.
Yeah, for sure. So now it's no longer like, hey, I'm so depressed I can't get out of bed. It's more of like, awesome, I'm out of bed now and I want to like discover my passion and my purpose and I want to help people. So how do we help people? So it just evolves and changes based on where you're at.
Yeah. And that it's okay wherever you're at on your journey, because it doesn't have to look a certain way. But as we work through those layers, as we do that inner work, then we're able to then go on and, create whatever it is we want to create. Yeah. We're here to create that heaven on earth and make that heaven on earth now. Like, that's also like a belief that people can get into, but you're not meant to live just in scarcity. You're not meant to just like scrape by. It's, so much more.
Yeah, joy, living in joy and passion. Yeah. And unfortunately, we live in a world that doesn't want you to have those things. And so you do have to kind of pave your way into the joy and experience those things.
Mm-hmm. That allowance, and then realizing, okay, well, the TV, the news, like those things, they just want to keep you in fear, because when you're in fear, you're easily controlled. And getting out of breaking paradigms, like, no, break your own paradigms and patterns that you've lived in. And then, it gets uncomfortable to, shift and grow and get beyond that fear. But that fear wouldn't exist, if there wasn't something like a gift in there. And having that courage to go into the unknown, into the void, and, surrendering into it. And
fear is my favorite.
I love that. Fear was always something, and worry, something that was always taught, and just so much of it. And then it was like, well, then I'm just defeated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fear. So I use a scale called the levels of energy to talk about like where emotions are. Yeah. So fear is one of the third lowest on the scale. Mm-hmm. And so you have guilt and shame, that level. Then you have like depression and all that. And then you have fear. And so I always tell people, I'm like, hey, so if you live in a state of fear all the time, you're going to drop down into these lower levels if you exist there too long. But fear, actually, the message in fear, I don't know if you know this or not, but fear is there to tell us what our next steps are. Mm-hmm. And I love that. So anytime I get scared, I'm like, hell yeah, what are we doing next? Like, yes, scared as shit. What are we supposed to do? But the more that you can interact with it on that level, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm getting scared, and I am kind of excited at the same time. So that means like a change is coming. Leaning into that and asking fear, okay, where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do? What are you trying to protect me from or not protect me from? So, yeah.
I love that conversation with the emotion. And change is good. Change is always good. It might be hard at the first, but it's always for the better. Mm-hmm. It always brings you just so much growth, and there's just so much expansion on that other side.
For sure. For sure. Heaven knows that my life has taken twists and turns all over the place.
Yeah.
So, love that.
Yeah. You can go wherever on the map, because that's where you're needed at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've gotten to the point where I don't necessarily manifest anymore. Meaning, and when I say manifest, things like, I really, desire a house, and that's what I'm calling in. I've gotten to the point where I'm just like, you know what, God, I want whatever you want for me, because I trust that you're going to bring it to me in perfect order anyway. So let's just do that. That's kind of where I'm at now with all of it, and change and manifesting. I'm like, I'm going to end up where I'm supposed to end up anyway. So let's just Let's just get there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Full trust, and that's full surrender. And
that in and of itself is a journey too. Learning how to surrender, learning how to, I like what she said, change is simple. It's the resistance that creates the struggle. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
It certainly is.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's the resistance, and what you resist persists. That's why you're struggling.
Yeah. The resistance is always worse than actually taking action or actually doing what you need to do in the first place. So
I've had to learn that one so many times.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it.
You had resistance when you did like your very first podcast. You're like, I can't go live. And you're like waiting to press the button. And then you get on it and it was perfect. It's just fine.
It's just fine. That one I didn't have so much resistance to.
Yeah.
Other things in
though. Yeah. You know, you've had it in your business. Like it's
yes. In your business. Yeah, totally. And doing the inverted wall at Spartan, never did that. Oh no. Like, even though I was there, like, oh no, I can't do that. Oh yeah. The guys there helped me and like pushed me up over the wall, and no, you're doing it. And I did it.
I probably would have picked burpees, honestly. I'm just to do burpees the whole time. It's just not going to happen.
I know the other things, that I couldn't do, but totally.
So funny. I love that.
Yeah. Anything else that we didn't cover that you want to cover?
Let's see. I would just say, one thing that I get all the time about belief reprogramming is somebody will say, well, I didn't have any trauma happen to me. I've never gone through like a traumatic event or things. And so just because you haven't gone through something significant does not mean that you don't have belief systems that need to be addressed. And so this work really is for everybody at all levels. My youngest client is 9 years old that I help work through these things. And so every single one of us benefits from doing belief work, benefits from really looking inside of what we do truly think and believe about ourselves, especially if we want to make changes and get to where we want to go. So I guess that's the only thing that I would have brought up, is just that this work is for everybody and it's powerful, life-changing.
No matter where they're at in their lives.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I don't know. Nothing else is like dropping in crazy saying like, hey, you got to say it, no more word vomit, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's perfect. And then, like what needed to be said is said, and what needed to come through came through. And that just wherever you're at on your journey is perfect. And where are your beliefs rooted from?
Your experiences, the things that you've experienced. So I always tell people it's what you've experienced and then what you believe to be true now because of that experience. That's what develops your belief, right? And they can be good or bad or neutral. It doesn't really matter. It's like if you go to the beach, for example, and you're playing in the sand, like some people love the beach and like, oh, I love the beach. I love the sun. I love the smell. And that's your experience. So your belief is, I love the beach. But then there's people who hate the beach because maybe they got burned and they got like sand burn in their legs. So their belief system is, I hate the beach. And so it's just based off of whatever experiences you had. And then you attach emotions and feelings to it that develop your belief.
Mm-hmm. And yes, then you're just going to replay that every time that the beach comes up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other thing that I'd say as well, people always ask me, like, is it possible that we all have one truth? Never.
Yeah.
We will never have the same truth because we are so unique and have different experiences that we will always be different from everybody. And it's supposed to be that way. And it's okay. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. Polarity in all things. Like a pancake will always have two sides.
Yeah, for sure.
Multiple truths can always exist at once.
Mm-hmm.
Your belief, my belief, but does that mean we can still get along? Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. Yeah, we just love each other and be there. It's not that hard, people. Just love each other.
Yes.
Everybody go along. It's all going to be.
Oh my gosh, you're such a pleasure to talk to. And
you.
Just appreciate you. If you do not follow Haley, go follow her. Find her on Instagram, on Facebook. You also have a website. Do you believe you are perfect? You are the only you on earth.
I believe that I do have access to my perfect self. And I believe that we all have that innate perfect self inside of us, our higher self.
Yeah.
Do I act like her every single day? Hell no. Hell no. But that's why I'm here. I don't believe that we're here to change or be different. I do believe that we are already good enough and we are already perfect as we are. And so my belief is that we're here to remember who we are. So, yes, I believe that I'm perfect, but I also believe that I agreed to come here and forget so I could remember all over again and learn different lessons along the way.
Totally.
So,
Totally.
yeah, we can get weird if we need to, but
hey, I'm okay with that. Yeah.
So my website is just haleymarie.com, super easy to find, but I also have Instagram, Facebook, all of those things. And last thing, I do offer the first belief reprogramming session for free. And so if you want to experience what it's like to go through one of these sessions, that's like my gift of service. I do believe in like giving back. And so I always do the first session for free as my give back. And so if anybody's interested in taking me for a little test spin, that's how we do it.
Totally. Totally. That's so awesome. And thank you so much. And such a pleasure to talk to you tonight. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And it was fun.
Yeah. Thanks for all that joined the show and those who will come on later. And thank you. Have a good night.